You need an emergency fund. Now, here is why you need one and how to set it up. Hey everyone, my name is Samuel Oloyede. Welcome to my channel where we turn boring money habits into powerful wealth building tools. Now, here is why you need an emergency fund. But first, what is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is like a financial safety net that lets you weather financial storms that may come your way. Because life is unpredictable. You may have maybe some health emergency, for example. It could be a car repair, it could be home repair that you need to do. It may even be opportunities that you need to spend money on. And how do you spend for these things without having to go into debt? This is where an emergency fund comes in really handy. Now, how should you set up an emergency fund? Here are 6 tips that can be helpful to you. Number one is to track your expenses. Now, here you want to determine basically how much do you spend per month on average. So you want to look at it over a couple of months and then look at the average, how much you spend. And the very easy way to do this is just for you starting right now, begin to track every income, every expenses that you spend, right? Everything you spend money on, track them. That way you will be able to determine on an average per month how much do you spend just to sustain your life. Number two is to determine your target amounts. Now that you have calculated how much you spend on an average monthly, the next thing is now you want to set your target amounts or to be about 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. We generally advise 3 to 6 months because, for example, let's say you lose your job, you want to be safe in the knowledge that within the next 3 to 6 months, even if you don't have a new job yet, while still looking for that job, you have enough money to at least sustain you. You are not going to have to go into debt just because you lose your job within a few months. So that is why you should set up maybe up to 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses as your target amount for your emergency fund. Number three now is to set up a dedicated savings account. You don't want to put your emergency fund in the same account where you do your daily spending, because in that case now you are going to just begin to spend your emergency fund without knowing. So you want to set up an account specifically as your emergency fund account, so that if an emergency comes, this is the account where you are taking from. Also, this also makes it easier to track. If it's a dedicated account, you know exactly how much you have saved up and exactly where you are going. So that is why you should set up a dedicated savings account for your emergency fund. Number four is to automate your savings. You want to make saving into your emergency fund easier. And one very easy way to do this is just to automate how you save into it. Right? You can just set up a kind of standing order that on so date each month, a certain amount should be automatically saved into your emergency fund. This way, you don't have to actively think about saving up, and you don't have to receive your income, finish spending it before realizing that, oh, I need to save into my emergency fund. So automating your saving makes it very easy for you to continue building up your emergency fund. Number five is for you to start small and stay consistent. When setting up your emergency fund, you don't want to get so overwhelmed that, oh, my emergency fund is supposed to be 2 million naira or $2,000, and oh, this is such a huge amount of money. Where do I start from? Just start from somewhere small. If it is 5,000 naira, you can save each month. If it is $10, you can save each month. Start from a small place, and the very important thing is for you to be consistent with it. If you are saving monthly or if your frequency is weekly, keep saving every month, every week. Keep saving. You want to be very consistent with it. That is the most important thing. And number six, the final step is to reassess from time to time. And if there is need for adjustment, you also want to adjust. So you want to reassess: am I still on track towards my financial goal? That is towards your emergency fund target. Are you still saving consistently towards that? Has your monthly expenses, for example, your living expenses, has it changed? Has it increased? Hopefully not. Or decreased? Hopefully yes. You also want to adjust your target goal or your habits, the way you save, your actions. You want to adjust it towards meeting this emergency fund. So from time to time, please assess what your current goal, and then also adjust it. And now those are the very simple steps to setting up an emergency fund. And in addition, I also want to give you some tips to make this much easier for you. And tip number one is to treat your emergency fund as untouchable. You want to adopt a mindset that under no circumstance, unless an emergency, are you to touch this money. Because if for every expense that comes up now, you are taking from your emergency fund, then you are never going to be able to reach that your target goal. So you want to adopt a mindset that you are only going to remove from this emergency fund if it's a true emergency. So please, that is one mindset that you should adopt. Tip number two is that after you have used part of your emergency fund, you want to replenish it immediately. Well, if not, put everything back immediately. You want to again immediately begin to save back towards that target amount that you have set. So if you have spent, let's say an emergency comes up today and you spend, let's say 30% of your emergency fund, you know that from the following month, you want to go back again, start saving up to replenish whatever you have spent. That is number two. Tip number three is to consider saving your money into a high yield savings account. Generally, your regular bank accounts, it may the amount of interest you get on it is usually low, but there are some savings accounts, maybe some platforms offer you. So if you are in Nigeria or Africa, one of them is RiceBest that I always recommend. Another one is Cowrywise. So these savings accounts, they give you interest that are much better than what you would get with your bank. So consider saving your emergency fund in this kinds of account as well. The next tip, which ties into the previous one, is that, in fact, it is very important, is that your emergency fund should be saved into an easily accessible account. You don't want to save your emergency fund now into an investment account that for you to get your money back, you have to maybe you have to wait for like 3 days. What if the emergency is today? Like, and the whole point of calling it an emergency fund is that anytime you need it, you always have access to it, right? So the account you are going to use for your emergency fund, let it be one that can be easily accessible. That if you need it today, you can get your money today. And the final tip is that you should be patient. Once you start today, for the next couple of months, it may not feel like you are making much progress at all. You may seem, oh, I have this high amount as my target, but this is where I am right now. Well, you just want to be patient with yourself. Consider the fact that up to this moment, you may not have what is even called an emergency fund at all. But right now, at the very least, you are making move. You are taking some steps towards having an emergency fund. So this is what is actually important. Please be very patient with yourself, and with time, things are going to get better.